after my nanny left, it started a long, arduous, uphill battle with everyone else fighting against me. And I've always been a strong person. I've known who I am. I've been lucky to have such a strong moral, ethical compass, knowing where I'm going and not really settling for less. And I had never been assertive with my mom because I couldn't be. I had to be this other person, or else the consequences were something I couldn't even imagine. Because I had to have the fallacy that she cared that things were better there. And they weren't, but I had to believe that things were better somewhere than they were at home. Because they were too bad every day to get up and keep dealing with it. With what was going on with my step-family and my father and all of that, I had to believe that things were better somewhere else. And so I always looked forward to these vacations with my mom and absolutely dreaded them once I was there. But I had to believe that there was something better somewhere. It couldn't all be this bad. And that's what I did. So my mom became my only advocate. And she wasn't really an advocate because she never actually stepped up to the plate and helped. She just kind of stirred things up here through me. And at this point in time, driver's license had happened, and my parents were really forcing the issue of a motor vehicle. Not so much for my benefit, because school's close and the bus really sufficed for most of my transportation. I was immersed in AP programs throughout my entire high school career, so I spent most of my time at the library at home doing homework, and that really served as a great distraction for a great many issues. But it was more for taking my step-siblings from A to B to Z with and alleviating their responsibilities there. So my father tries to pawn it off on this great father-son experience, this 16-year-old milestone. And I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but I had truly hoped for it to be something like that, and it really wasn't. It turned to be something much worse. To put this in perspective, this became kind of a great issue, one of the major risks in my family. My stepmother is an environmentalist. And that's great that she believes in that. And I do believe in preserving the environment. But when you try and inflict someone else's, your views on someone else, that's when there's a problem. That's when I have a problem with it. I'm great about discussing them and understanding them and seeing where they come from. But when you try and enforce them on someone else, that's when there's an issue. My stepmother and my parents established there was a certain fuel efficiency requirement, and it wasn't because fuel was all that expensive. This was back before it was $2 a gallon, and $2 a gallon seemed like a huge amount of money for fuel. I, ever since the age of 5, had wanted a Land Rover. I loved going off-road. I love adventure. I love being able to go anywhere. And it didn't matter if it was a 10-year-old Land Rover falling apart or a brand new one. That's what I wanted. But with my stepmother, who was now influencing my father, a 12 miles to the gallon monstrosity designed for off-roading was not in the picture. And I knew that my parents were really getting at the idea of, we want you to take the kids from A to B to Z, and that we're going to volunteer you for all these other driving venues and opportunities. And it wasn't something that I was really interested in. I would have rather had the money go into an account towards an airplane later on in my life, or something like that, or rather than just not spend the money. But suffice it to say, they did, and I ended up with my first car, which was absolutely horrible, but that's beside the point. I then had to pick the kids up from school pretty much every day. Okay, so you may say that's no big deal. But then I had to drive their friends' places and pick their friends up and make sure that they got to their friends' houses and do, later on, bar bat mitzvah party runs because they went to Jewish private school. Thank God I didn't go there. But they went there and had parties every weekend, and so I was constantly driving people places, even on days when simply there wasn't time and I had too much homework. I couldn't say no. Even if I said no, they'd pull the whole guilt thing on me, the guilt trip, and we never ask you really to do anything, and blah, 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 and this is why you're not allowed to do this, 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 and this. So, I'd eventually do it, but I'd be reluctant. It caused more consternation. It caused more resentment towards what was going on, because I was being forced hand and foot to do these things that I didn't really want to do. and my parents were still not really respecting my time or privacy, and things here were still not that great. They were dark, and this was just another outlet for that resentment of what had gone on, and it had built up over quite a bit of time. To describe to you my high school life, I was immersed in AP program, basically, honors and AP courses, which I absolutely loved and were completely and totally worth the time and energy spent on it. There wasn't so much as a school break that I actually had a break from homework. I averaged 5 to 10 hours of homework a day, including weekends and school breaks, many large projects, and all those things. And it really was great because things were bad here, and it gave me something else to do to keep my mind off of it and not to sit there and stew about it. And it also kept other issues with my mother and other issues with me at bay. Simply, there wasn't the time. I didn't have the time or the ability to deal with them. It was just that plain, that simple. And without it, I couldn't have gone through it. I wouldn't want it to be any other way. So when my parents want me to go and spend an hour to pick them up from school, because it's what it entailed, sitting and waiting for them to come out, or drop their friends' places, it wasn't exactly convenient. I had other things that were, studies that were more important, or I deemed more important and more pertinent to me at that time. So it became a constant issue of consternation, and my parents dreaded asking me to do things. My stepmother became very, very, very bitter with me, not only because of that, because of what was going on with my mom and any number of other things.